If you haven't heard yet, this Saturday's fight between Daniel Rodriguez and Kelvin Gastelum has been changed from 170 to 185 because Kelvin Gastelum is having trouble making weight. Tell me if you've heard this story before. Kelvin Gastelum struggling with his weight cut. We're going to watch this clip here from the Mac Life, courtesy of Oscar Willis, where Gastelum talks about having troubles making weight. And by the way, just as a side note, see a lot of fans and people being like, man, the media has so many boring questions, like asking about how their weight cut's going. This is why you ask how the weight cut's going, because you get gold like this. So hear what Gastelum has to say about his struggles making 170 ahead of Saturday's fight with Daniel Rodriguez.
Do we feel confident that we're hitting 170 this weekend, or do we think maybe there should be a conversation about a catch weight?
I am pretty worried this week, but we're going to talk with the manager and come up with the best game plan. But I think we're in for a rough weight cut.
Do we feel confident that we're hitting 170?
Anyway, so he says he's going to have a tough weight cut. So we don't know anything else outside of this. And then they talk to Daniel Rodriguez, his opponent, and here's what Rodriguez has to say. Again, at this point, when we see this clip, we don't know really what's going on with the fight. And Rodriguez gives us some clarity here. You can see in this clip.
He was just in here and he said that training camp's not gone well. He's struggling with a weight cut. It might be a rough one, and he would like to. Him and his manager might, consider reaching out about a catch weight. Have you heard anything about that? And are you surprised that he was so honest?
Actually, the matchmakers reached out, and I tried to get it to a catch weight, but I mean, he must be having such a bad fight camp that he can't even make 180. I'm currently 179 pounds. So I have to put weight back on. It's been 13 weeks since I found out about this fight. I'm sure he has too. So the fact that he's saying that he's having a bad fight camp, it makes no sense, And I feel like it's lack of discipline. I don't know if he's having a bad fight camp or just being lazy and doesn't want to make the weight.
Yeah, so here's the thing. Normally, I would give the fighter the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they did have a bad camp, but this is Kelvin Gastelum, who's missed weight so many times in his career I can't even count. And I'm surprised there's not more outrage about this. This is the Paulo Costa, Marvin Vettori thing from a couple of years ago. Remember when Paulo Costa, just during fight weeks, like, yeah, I can't make 185. Let's make this 205. And the UFC basically had to do it because it was a main event. In this case, they pretty much have to do this fight as well because this is the card in Saudi. Obviously, they need to have some big fights on here. They already lost Khamzat Chimaev. So this fight most likely is going to go on. But what a bunch of bullshit, honestly. Like, I hate to even get upset here, but fight week, you're like, I'm having a bad cut, let's change it. And of course, you know who his manager is. We don't even need to mention this. Gastelum's manager, that is, who's very tight with the UFC. The whole thing is just ridiculous and unprofessional. And let's go over the amount of weight misses that Kelvin Gastelum has had in his career, dating back to when he won the Ultimate Fighter. So 3 fights into his UFC career, he missed weight against Nico Muskoke, 172.5. Then he takes a catch weight because he missed weight against Tyron Woodley, a fight which he ended up losing by split decision. Goes to middleweight, then goes back to welterweight. Hendricks misses weight in his fight with, so I thought for a second he missed weight there, but that was Johnny Hendricks who missed weight. He goes back to middleweight, fights at middleweight for a while, fought Israel Adesanya, had a pretty good career at middleweight, and then returns to welterweight against Sean Brady, makes the weight, and then loses the fight to Sean Brady. But this is his 3rd miss at welterweight. That's not a good look for a guy who's been in the UFC as long as he has. And like Rodriguez mentioned, they had plenty of time before this fight. I guess the reason I'm outraged is because Gastelum's a favorite in this fight. It looks like they're going to go ahead with it. It also looks like, because of the optics of this card, like if this was like an Apex card, this fight's probably scrapped. You can't just change a weight class midway through, a fight week. I know they've done it before, but that's really not fair to Rodriguez here. And Gastelum's going to get it because, again, he won the Ultimate Fighter. He has a manager who's tight with the UFC, and they're just going to sweep this under the rug, and it's no big deal. But I feel for Daniel Rodriguez, who already did the UFC a solid by fighting Ian Gary on short notice, a fight he ended up losing. And you look at the optics here, Rodriguez has been out for a while. He's lost 2 in a row. If he loses this, he could be cut. And his opponent can't even make the weight. So, again, that we'll see what, obviously at this point, we got to see how the actual weigh-ins go. But the fact that he's so heavy, he can't even make a catch weight of 180, that is ridiculous. So we'll see what the UFC does. I don't think there's going to be any repercussions. I think if this was any other fighter on the roster, they're probably going to release him because you can't miss weight this many times. You can't jeopardize a big card that's already taken a lot of hits because of, discipline. And look, maybe there was an injury. Maybe there's a legit reason for this, but sorry, you've used up all your, excuse cards because of the fact that you've missed weight so many times. Again, he's missed it, 3 times? Let me do my math here. So missed it here. And so he's missed weight twice already. and then he's missing weight here again. So that's 3 times. That's not a good look, man. It's not a good look. So again, we'll see what happens, but not a good look here for Kelvin Gastelum. By the way, I got nothing against Kelvin. Really good guy. I've spoken to him before. Absolutely no problems with him as a person, and I think he's a great fighter. Remember his fight with Adesanya? Obviously, a fight of the year candidate. But I just feel here for Rodriguez, and people are just going to sweep this under the rug because he's Daniel Rodriguez. He's 37, and I'm sure people are going to say, "Oh, no big deal." Gastelum will, just fight him at middleweight, and then Gastelum has the advantage because obviously he's not having to kill his body as much, whereas Rodriguez already went through this. Also, keep in mind this is in the Middle East, so travel can have an effect. But if you knew that, you got to make sure your weight cut's even better if you got a long travel time. I mean, Rodriguez does too. He's an American. It's not like he's coming from a different country and it's going to be shorter travel time. So there's really no excuses here. And again, this is a fight that's been announced for a while. So I 100% agree with Daniel Rodriguez. I'm sure he's getting paid well, but he's well within his right to not take this fight. I mean, it's one thing to miss weight by like 3, 4, 5 pounds. Even then, that's still kind of pushing it a bit. But to go up a complete different weight class, a weight class that Rodriguez has primarily fought at 170 in his career. You go look at his weight. Let me just go have a look here. Daniel Rodriguez. Like, I'm pretty sure the majority of his fights have been fought at 170. We go look back a little bit here. They're not showing his record. 1 second. So yeah, he fought at middleweight earlier in his career. Couple catch weights here as well. Welterweight, had a catchweight fight due to that switch up at the last minute UFC 279. So again, going to be fighting middleweight here when he absolutely should not have to. So yeah, I mean, again, bad look here for Kelvin Gastelum. For a guy that's already in a bit of a tough spot himself. If you look at Gastelum, right, losing to Sean Brady in his last fight, did beat Chris Curtis in kind of a close fight, but then you look at prior to this, I mean, not a great line of fights here. I mean, again, they'll keep him around because he's a, like I said, Ultimate Fighter winner and all that, but I just think this is a really bad look. And I think if the circumstances were different, if this was like an Apex card and they didn't care about it, this fight's probably getting scrapped. But because it's on Saudi and because we know the UFC has to put on a good event for them, the fight's going to stay intact and they're going to end up doing it. And Daniel Rodriguez is probably going to lose. I mean, he might win. I think it's a close fight going in. I said this already, but I just feel for D-Rod a little bit here because I think that he didn't do anything wrong. He was the one that, came in shape. And like he said here, he's got to put weight on. That's not going to help him in the fight. So yeah, just disappointing here from Kelvin Gastelum. I had a feeling when he moved back down to 170, remember we heard about this before, him fighting Sean Brady. I didn't think it was a great idea just because he's always had issues with the cut and he's worked with high-level guys before. Remember he worked with Mike Dolce and a few other people as well throughout his career. I just think I don't know if it's a discipline thing or what the deal is because he's not that big of a guy for middleweight. He's 5'9" with a 71.5 inch reach. You look at most middleweights there. I mean, there's lightweights that are taller than Kelvin Gastelum and have a different reach. So I think his body, and again, not a doctor here, but his body is definitely more suited for 170. I think it's just a discipline issue with him. Because again, it's not like you can't even use it's an injury excuse. And let's say it was an injury, okay? Why not give the UFC a heads up or Rodriguez's camp a heads up that you might have trouble making the weight because you have an injury or something like that, or at least give the UFC a heads up and let them know. But to do it on fight week, again, just a really bad look here. So I want to know what you guys think on the comment section below. Do you think there'll be any outrage on this? I don't, just because again, it's Gastelum and people are just going to sweep this under the rug. But I think this should be a big deal in my opinion because it's not fair to Daniel Rodriguez what's going on. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram @LynchOnSports. I'm James Lynch. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.